Origin stories. Everybody's got them. What the heck is ours?
Do we have one?
We do. We do. You know what? At Left Right Labs, we have had our branding agency for over 18 years now. That's a long freaking time.
I think our origin story is going to be a little weird.
All the best ones are, right? It's so funny. We don't get into this a whole lot like in general conversations. So when we're out there teaching and training, it's not something that most people hear. It's usually something that our clients find out three or four or five calls in and they're like, what? Why does nobody know this? So we thought this would be a fun thing to get to share with you and just to know a little bit about our origin stories. Because, when it comes to branding, your origin story is something that is really kind of the crux that everything builds off of. And so it's one of those things that I'm like, why don't we go ahead and share ours? So, okay, I want you all to just take a second and think. If you are looking at the two of us, first of all, who do you think is older? um, and how many years do you think there are between us? You're going to be shocked. This freaking 15-year-old looking woman is 11 years older than me.
Reverse the 15, I'm 51.
But you know what? That's part of the origin story because actually the way that I very first met Gretchen, we were going to the same church together. She was one of the leaders in the youth group, and I was one of the students in the youth group. And we really didn't know each other then. You were just like the cool chick that played the drums, and you had super curly hair at that time. And so she was
there.
It's there. But it was one of those things where I didn't really know you for most of my youth group time. Like I saw you there. For self-preservation, I'm sure. But I saw you bring your girls in and like so she's up there playing the drums for this youth group band and she just has like headphones on her kids and they're, sitting with somebody near the stage. They're holding them, but they've just got headphones in and they're there listening to mom jam away at the drums. And so that was really mostly how I knew Gretchen all throughout my high school years of youth group. And then when I got into my 20s and you were in your 30s, what happened then?
You were in college and the college group decided they were going to start like a worship team band. No, we were doing a Saturday night church or something like that. And they were pulling together people who want to do worship for that. So me being one of the only drummers in the church at the time, I
also a phenomenal drummer. Don't downplay yourself. Okay.
I was like dragged into that. So I'm like, okay, cool. I can show up. And any opportunity to play drums I was in. So it wasn't a hard sell. And then you were tapped to sing on the worship team. And so we started doing that. And we did that for a few months. And all of a sudden the core group of us who were doing worship were just like, hey, pretty good at this. We should start a band.
Where all the wildest ideas start. We're pretty good at this. We should XYZ. But yeah, that was really where we first got to start knowing each other. I was in my 20s, you were in your 30s, and we were thrown together in this band. And, we started to get to know each other through practice time, really. Just kind of like, you're standing around, you're joking, you're waiting for everybody to get together. And then anytime you're doing music together, whether it's worship music or pop music or whatever the thing is, you have to have a flow on stage. You have to be able to read each other.
Yep.
You have to really build a bond in order for the music to be effective.
You have to duck when the drummer throws sticks.
That was after you got to know me better. That was her favorite thing. I became target practice during practice, which was great. You're over here trying to like lead a powerful song and really uplift people. No, she wouldn't do this during performance. But during practice, I'm like really in the moment, and then all of a sudden I get pinged in the back of the head with a drumstick.
Softly.
Softly, yes. But that's how we got to know each other, was really through the start of that worship team. And then, like she said, a handful of us from that realized we had a great sound together. And
Mhm.
so let's start a band. Let's add one more thing to our already full lives because,
Right.
a personality types can't find enough things to
Well,
keep themselves
and
busy with.
speaking of full lives, at the time I was doing freelance web development. Like I had built a site called Girls Can't What. It still exists, girlscan'twhat.com. But I got so many people asking me, "Oh, I love your website. Will you build one for me?" So I was an accidental web developer and doing this freelance on the side while I'm working from home. I had two young daughters at the time, and Trina was finishing up her degree in basically graphic design.
Minor in marketing.
Yeah. And so I development was my thing. I can code all day long, but when it came to graphic design, I was like, man, I'm not that great. But in our Trina, and I was like, hey, I've got these freelance gigs and I could really use some help in the art department. What are would you be interested in helping me out? So that's how kind of our business started. Was I just needed a graphic designer. I'm just like, hey,
well, and unbeknownst,
you know how to use Photoshop.
right? Unbeknownst to Gretchen, I had only done one web design project before she invited me to take part in this and do this with her. And so, you do what anybody does in that situation. Sure, I can do that, right? And in your head, you're just like, I'm going to figure out, I'll get better as I go. But, I had just had a professor at my college who was doing a web design project for the local branch of the Salvation Army. And she knew that I was really looking at more ways to build my branding portfolio and think of different ways that I could apply my skills. And so that professor had invited me to take part in that. And so that was the only project I had done as far as web design and kind of understanding development. I'd done plenty in print media design like that. That was really kind of my go-to up until then. And prior to that, I have a long history of fine art background. So, painting, drawing, mixed media, all of that. But my first web design project was for a Salvation Army group. And then Gretchen reached out and I'm like, well, she's cool. I kind of know her a little bit from worship team, and who doesn't want to pay down student loans faster? So sure, let's do it. So, it was really funny because we kind of started to get to know each other through the band. And as the band picked up and we got deeper and deeper into that, we really went from, acquaintances to best friends over the years. I mean, we were in that band. We were in that band for almost 10 years. We recorded an album.
Well, we spent a lot of time together because if we weren't at worship team practice, then we had started the secondary band. So we had worship team practice,
right?
We had a second band with a group of people. So there was multiple rehearsals going on during the week. And then Trina she had a day job at a printing company.
No, a print media design agency.
Design agency, yeah. And she would come over to my place after work and we would work on art projects and web design projects. And then usually that lasted for a couple hours. Then we'd have to stop and go to some band rehearsal. And so it was literally happening just all the time. And then, but that went on for about a year and a half, 2 years of that. And then our business had grown so much that we incorporated, turned it into a name that was terrible at the time.
Tell this, okay, no. This is real, people. This is names and brands are so important. Our first name of our company was Time for Design, which sounds okay, but how did we spell it? We spelled it time like the freaking herb. Like, and we had all this cutesy thing like your brand recipe and Gretchen, like take Gretchen, chef Gretchen with her
I don't even cook
intelligence and a dash of sarcasm, like that was oh god,
it was bad.
That was where we started.
It was well at the time. I wouldn't say it was bad. There were a lot of companies doing that type of cutesy little thing because the web was still a little young at that time. And
because we started our agency in 2006.
Yeah. And I've been doing web development since 1993 or 4.
Yeah.
So the web was still pretty young at this time. But anyway, it was so cutesy that every time we tell people the name of our business, we have to spell the first word. It's thyme, like THYME, like the herb, and people would be like, okay. So that didn't last very long. And we eventually became Left Right Labs because that was a better fit, and there's more to that story. But
Yes.
anyway, yeah, so it took us about, I would say, close to 2 years from the first moment of me saying, hey, Photoshop, come help me with this, to, hey, we got a lot of work on our plate and we're doing pretty good. What do you say you quit your job and we do this full time?
Well, and it's pretty wild. We like to tell people we went from bandmates to best friends to business partners. And, what's so cool in that whole story is as we were, bandmates, that's where we were kind of developing our friendship. And then as our band grew, we got to a place where we were, traveling, we were doing competing, we recorded an album in Nashville back in 2010.
Something like that. Yeah.
And then we did some small Christmas tours. I mean, nobody freaking knew who we were, but we knew how to move an audience. And that is so core to branding, is like being able to connect with people, being able to read a crowd, being able to move them when the energy shifts, and understand what they're needing and how your skills or your gift or your talent is actually able to serve that audience.
Yeah.
And so that was something we'd really become completely adept at and really mastered in the band. And having done that for 10 years and all those performances, we ended up at our church being the main worship team for almost a year. We'd had a worship pastor leave, so then we were running the entire worship team, all of the other team members, putting together sets and running them through pastors and preparing things that were going to align with different messages. I mean, it was a lot of like training wheels that we didn't even realize we were getting. It's pretty cool to look back at it.
Well, and I think one thing to note too, with all of that music experience. So first of all, I went to one of the top private music schools in the country, got my degree in music. And, but when you're in a music school, one of the things that they teach you is we would learn pieces of music start to finish. There's a stopping point, there's an ending point, and then you would have a
starting
performance
point and ending point.
Yeah. Starting and stopping point. There's always a beginning and end, and you would rehearse the same thing over and over again, and then you get up on a stage and it's already spelled out exactly what you're going to be doing. That's performance in a music school. But when you're in a church setting or you're out in a live setting, anything can happen. It could go, we could be like, it's the person who's leading the worship team might say they do this for one more time. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm starting this course over. And it's constant adaptation to what's happening. If the audience is really into it, you might go 2 more times with the chorus. You might build it up. You might bring it down really soft. You're always watching that leader's hand.
You might pull in a song that wasn't even in the set list, but it's all like, you have to get to a point where you know each other well enough that you can literally just feel it. And you're like, we know right where we're going because we've spent so much time learning each other.
And that's really what good branding is when everything is cohesive and just flows, and you don't have to worry about, oh, I had to do this post and I had to set this thing and I have my YouTube has to be this. It's when it all just works together. That's just good branding, and you don't have to think about your marketing. It flows.
Well, and I think that is part of like another kind of iteration in our business. We started out really just focused on the design and development. And as we grew, we wanted to do more and more brand strategy with each other because with our clients, because, as Gretchen is saying, like, it's really getting to know one another, being able to flow that way. That doesn't happen if you don't have a plan, so it's so fun to look back and see like how these steps led to the other. And it's the same thing when it comes to building your brand and thinking about how does your origin story flow into the brand that you're building and why you're passionate about what you do and how it's going to impact other people. Because then that trickles down, like when you figure that out for yourself here, it trickles down into, well, how does that play into the products and the packages that I create for people? How does that play into the way that I connect with my audience? There's a lot of branding agencies that have an approach of they want to be very high level. They want to maybe intentionally kind of speak over their audience's head to show authority. that's not the way we like to do it. We are used to moving with an audience, to directing an audience, to feeling exactly where they're at, and to going like, look, I see you. I understand where you are. I know you, and I'm going to move with you, and I'm going to guide you to where I can see you need to go next. And I think that that is so ingrained in the way that we dive into brands with our clients. For us, our favorite kind of client is a thought leader, like somebody who already has a stage, they have an audience of their own, they understand the skill of moving that audience. But what they're looking to do is, how do I make that pivot when it needs to go to the next level without having all the normal levels of communication? And because we've worked so well together for so long in the band, and you have to read those silent cues, we're so good at that. Like that, I would say, is really one of our superpowers when it comes to branding, because a client comes to us, and if we're going to work with you, like, we're going to drink the Kool-Aid. We're going to read your books. We're going to follow, what you've done on social media. We're going to be following what you have done, in writing or on your website. We're going through all of it, and we're going to want to know you at every level. And so then that really plays into the way that we approach your brand and the way your audience needs to connect with you. So I think that's so fun. And it wasn't until several years of us being into business together that we realized, oh my gosh, all of our time in the band, like how much it honed our roles, that carries over into what we do now. Like Gretchen has always been the one behind the scenes, even in the band, that would you would coordinate like all the chords and the gear and the tech,
the music. Yeah, if there was, because I had the music degree and understood a lot of that, if we had to transpose it to another key or whatever, that was usually my job.
And I was the one that was reaching out to venues and out there connecting and networking with people and figuring out who we could bring our music to and how we could help impact their audience with our music. What did your congregation or your audience or your town need when we were coming to sing and to perform and to impact people there? So, it's so funny. We didn't really realize we'd been in business for a long time before we had that aha. We were actually at an event in Denver, Colorado. We were walking around downtown with a group of people from our mastermind group, and we were just chatting, and we just went, wait a minute, all those years we were preparing to have the same kind of role, and we had no clue. So it's pretty wild the way life does that for you, but I feel like over the years, with any brand, with any company, you're going to have your ups and downs. And so when you can know your own origin story and you can really remember, why are you doing this? Why does this matter to you? That fuels you and keeps you moving forward. And it's going to keep you focused every time you need to iterate your brand. Because the longer you've had your brand, I mean, we've had our company for 18 years now. So let's talk about the ways that has evolved and changed over the years.
When we started, a lot of what I was doing was basically order taking. People would be like, hey, I like your website. I want kind of the same thing, but here's what I want. And I would just be like, okay. And I would make it for them. And that was it. That was just make the site and move on. And comparing that back to our music and what we were doing with that, our best gigs were the ones where we got to choose how the music flowed and what order it was. There were occasionally places where we would go and they would be like, this is what we want. And we were kind of stuck with a certain set list, or maybe it was only like 3 songs or something like that. Those were like, those weren't the greatest. But when we had control to just go with the flow and go with what the audience wanted, because that's what makes it great. Bringing that over into our web development and our branding and design and strategy and all of that, we started out just kind of like taking orders from clients and saying, okay, well, if you want this, sure, we can make that. And then we started seeing that some of those folks did not know what they were doing. They just saw somebody else and like, I want that. I want make it like that. But we would be internally going, but that's
we'd be having conversations, like we'd get off our client call and we would go, that's not what they need. Like that is, so we really started to go, okay, this is our responsibility to speak up and to be able to give,
Pushback, really.
respectful pushback. But yeah, we're going to tell you, look, like, especially now, we've been doing this for 18 years. We have been in the digital landscape, like, we're OGs. All right. So we started, like, the internet had not even been around very long when we're doing this. So websites hadn't been around very long. And so to really be able to dig in and to use all that experience, we're speaking from experience and from the research that we do on the industry. And so it's important to pay attention to that and to tap into that and be willing to shift for yourself. So now we say, we'll tell you the truth. We don't care how famous you are. We're always going to be respectful, but we are going to say, okay, it is our recommendation that you do XYZ, because if we don't do that, then we're doing you a disservice. And I think it's the same thing in the way that your brand treats your audience. If you're not giving them the whole truth, if you're not, sharing with them about your entire product and how it serves them, or if you have a protocol, or if you have this perfect piece of real estate that serves all their needs, like, if you're not giving them the full answer from whatever your brand perspective is, you're doing them a disservice. And the further we got into it, we really started to tap into what are our strengths. Who are the people that we enjoy working with the most? Who are the people that we feel are making an impact we can align with? And, it really ended up kind of intersecting with our personal lives. And so do you want to share a little bit, Gretchen, about how we made a second pivot into kind of getting into the health and wellness space?
Yeah, so we're trying to figure out what's the through line with our clients. There are certain ones where it was just a really good fit. We had good camaraderie. We really helped them grow their business. There was just mutual respect on both ends. But we were seeing that across different industries. So it wasn't industry specific. And of course, at the time, everybody was niching down into some industry. And we were just like, yeah, but we can't pick because we have lots of good ones here. And so we literally sat down with a piece of paper and a pencil and just started writing down all the characteristics and things of different clients that we were really having success with and really enjoyed working with. And then trying to kind of just cross-referencing what that looked like. And it turned out to be people who were just in the health and wellness space, who were good thought leaders, who really were trying to better themselves and use that to then better other people. And those were the kind of people who were like, that's what we want to do. We're happy to be the behind the scenes people to a lot of our clients. And we work with some really famous folks, like take Layla Ali, for example, but Layla's the forefront. She's the face of her brand. We're kind of the behind the scenes people. But we're very happy to just, if she's calling us up and saying, hey, I'm going to be on Good Morning America tomorrow. Can you, do XYZ for me? Absolutely. I don't need credit for that. I don't need her to call me out on that. I don't need any of that. But the through line on that is people who are genuinely out to help other people. Those are the clients that we want to work with. And we find that those types of clients are the ones that, we have the good camaraderie, we have that good rapport. And those are the ones that I'm excited to get up in the morning and help, because I'm actually I'm part of their mission. And I think that's a super exciting thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is. Well, so we started with that pulse in a paycheck effect. And then we really started kind of niching down to who are the people who are focused on serving others. And what that kind of turned into for us was really a lot of them were in the health and wellness space or nonprofit. So health and wellness is broad, right? I mean, this means it was everybody from psychologists, therapists, somatic healers, nutritionists, fitness professionals. I mean, it really kind of runs the gamut. And so that has been our heartbeat for quite a while now. And we've had kind of some personal stories that have flowed in with that. I actually lost my mom to diabetes and heart disease back in 2015. And so that was one of those moments that we already had quite a few clients in the health and wellness space at that time. And so we kind of had a conversation about, like, let's double down. What if, I can't be the one on the platform teaching you about, exact health and wellness techniques, but I can use my branding powers for good. I can use my ability to connect with an audience and to understand what they need emotionally, and for you to understand, what systems are needed and the way that the user experience should be crafted to reach those people. That is how we can use our skills to support people like that. So, that's been really incredible. And even since then, I really feel like our niche now is really focused on thought leaders. And so we still have a lot in the health and wellness space, but we also have a lot in high level business sectors. We're talking about business mastermind groups or, attorneys or realtors, like, finance advisors, people that just kind of run that gamut. But really what they're trying to do is they're saying, we're taking our skill and we're putting heart behind it. Like we have a real mission and a real passion behind the way we want to get our message out there and who we want to impact. And so I think that's why for us, unforgettable brands are something that is so important. And, I think our favorite ones to dig into are really rebrands, people that need to come in and start over or make a pivot or just kind of scale to that next level. And that's something we really resonate with because of our story, how we got started, how our business iterated over the years, how we got more and more confident and concise about who we want to serve. And so it's been such a blast to be able to help people think about a rebrand. There's so many moving parts. We're left, right labs. So it's the left brain coming together with all of the systems, that engineering mindset, the real kind of finite ways of looking at things. It's the right brain who's thinking about how you're going to connect emotionally with your audience. How can you carry the story of where you've come from into where you're going and find that golden thread, that through line that's really going to carry your brand to that next level? And more importantly, how do you speak to the top tier of your audience that you've already built? Because most of our clients, they already have large platforms. But when you make a pivot like that, you don't have to take everybody with you. They're still going to follow you because they love you. But maybe you're wanting to create new high ticket products. Maybe you're looking for an opportunity to pivot completely in your field. That's what we're best at doing. It's like, okay, let's dig in, let's craft those conversations. Let's really think about how we can make that all fit together. And I think it really goes back to our days on stage, pivoting between songs, reading an audience, adding in things that weren't even in our original set and just doing it at the drop of a hat. And I think we got to do something recently. We got to do brand strategy for a church recently, a very large church, and we had 25 different leaders in that room. And, of those 25 leaders, I would say 10 of them are lead pastors over their departments. So it's a lot of people that are used to being in charge. And they're used to leading and they're used to being able to give that information to the room. So talk about needing to walk into a room, read it quickly, be able to serve each person where they're at, but then also keep it moving forward where it needs to go. It is not your job as a thought leader to figure out how the heck all those little pieces are going to fit together. Find the team that can do that, the team that wants to speak your language, the team that wants to help you find that through line and has the organization and the systems to help you do that, to have a rebrand that's going to flow simply. So that's a little bit about our origin story. Of course, you could ask more things. We'd love to hear, your questions and your thoughts in the comments. And if this resonated with you, how have you pivoted over the years? How have you seen your brand move? What are your questions about branding and rebranding? We'd love to know. Well, I'm Trina.
And I'm Gretchen.
And we're Left Right Labs. Talk to you soon.
Bye.